Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Friday, May the 27th, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from investmentresearchdynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org, and this is just a quick market update. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm looking forward to a nice long Memorial Day weekend, and I bet at the end of this we'll wish everyone a happy Memorial Day weekend.
I'll take that bet.
Currency settlement system that I think Jeff Brown said they're going to roll it out in July. Now I wouldn't.
No, that's China's. Russia's is already in place. You talking about the alternative to the SWIFT system?
Yeah, well. Yeah. But I think Russia and China kind of collaborated because they're basically the same thing. It's just a currency. It's a system that lets them settle trade with. You can electronically settle your trades with your currencies internationally,
and without using the dollar.
Right.
Without having to go through Belgium, which is key.
Right, and that's been the stick that the U.S. has been holding over countries' heads when they say, well, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to impose economic sanctions, including cut you off from the SWIFT system.
Yes.
And they did that briefly to
Iran,
and India still wanted to buy Iran's oil, so they were trading oil for gold.
Yep. Yes, they were. And then China got in on some kind of workaround also in Russia, I believe, as well. They were trading for Iranian oil with either food or they were trading some. I can't remember what it was, but they were making some kind of swap with Iran for their oil during that time, and kind of stabilized them a little bit.
Right.
So. But if you look at situations, once again, like what's happening in Venezuela, and like you said a minute ago, Dave, it's straight out of the John Perkins book,
Diary of an Economic
Hitman. Yeah. I mean, since Venezuela would not play along with their gold, Chavez ordered his gold to come home. It came home. Goldman Sachs made them an offer they couldn't refuse. They refused it, and lo and behold, their economy blows up, and now they don't even have any cash. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been reading, that they have no currency. So, I mean, and not only do they not have any currency, they don't have any food on the shelf. They don't have any food. They have very limited electricity. They have very limited water. People are starving to death. All of these things that these keyboard commandos talk about and try to romanticize as far as an economic collapse. Well, there's your economic collapse. If you want to see what's actually happening, there it is. You can go and look at it, look at any of the reports that are out there, and tell me what's romanticized about it. There's nothing romantic about it at all. When you have people that are starving to death, they're dying in the streets, they're being killed for $5. They're eating cats and dogs, period. All of these are ramifications of an economic collapse, and that's exactly what's happening in Venezuela. And what China and Russia and the other Eastern nations are doing is moving away from that so that they aren't subjected to this financial terrorism, which is exactly what it is.
It's been part of the U.S. playbook since probably the 50s, actually.
That long?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that's when the U.S. started going in and raiding those Central American countries. That's where the term "banana republic" came from, because the fruit companies up here were going down there, and they didn't want they wanted to pay the people who were picking the fruit a lot less money because it was more profitable. So they basically went down there, overthrew the governments, and put in the U.S. puppets. And I remember when I was in business school, I was friends with a guy whose father was, I forget which Central American country he was an ambassador to. So this was in the 80s. And he was talking about stories from the 70s when they'd go down there, treated like royalty, and they'd be at parties. And he said the whole time you would see, all these officials from the U.S. and all these other countries all exchanging envelopes full of cash.
Well, I think that actually Smedley Butler was saying that it was actually going on even earlier than that, earlier than the 50s.
And it could have been, yeah, I'm sure it was.
So, what's on your mind today, Dave?
Well, I get, this whole narrative out there that interest rate hikes are going to drive down the price of gold, and yet it doesn't affect the stock market. It just shows how absolutely rigged the propaganda and the markets are. I wonder if they're making it obvious intentionally, and that may be part of what their motive is. Their motive is, the message is, stay away from gold and put all your money into stocks because stocks are going up and gold's going lower.
I'm sure that's a big part of it. I mean, and another part of it, Dave, may be that the corporations that are, like the FANGs, so-called FANGs or whatever, they're running low on cash, the ability to do these stock buybacks. I mean, do you think that may be part of it?
And all they care about is that when you turn on the news, oh, the Dow is getting closer to an all-time high. That's all they care about. People don't care about the specific stocks, and everyone knows that the FANGs are insanely overvalued. Those stocks, those companies haven't necessarily been buying back their stocks. It's primarily the Dow components and a lot of the S&P 500 components also, but they are running out of cash to do that. But they've just been issuing debt in order to buy back the shares. So I don't know why the stock buybacks have slowed down, other than a lot of these companies are getting to the point where it's getting too expensive for them to issue debt because their balance sheets are getting so levered up.
Which spells doom for them.
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, no, eventually this market rigging's not going to work, and it's going to be really ugly.
Well, in our conversation with John Embry yesterday, it sounded like that this end game we could be in approaching the final innings of it. I mean, unless they're just pull something out of the air, unforeseen, another, not saying that it's going to be another QE, but some other just completely made up nonsense like QE that allows them to continue the narrative.
There's a lot of people who think that, the real brown stuff is going to hit the fan by the end of summer. Now, I'm kind of agnostic now. I'm making predictions because they've been able to kick the can down the road for a lot longer than I would have ever thought. So, just to reference a comment that Embry made, they've been able to stretch this out for a lot longer than we all expected because of all the financial engineering and the derivatives. And the derivatives just applies one large, another layer, a massive layer of artificiality on everything. At some point, it's gonna collapse. It's gonna be really ugly. Like Bill Gross was in the media yesterday making a comment like that. So a lot more high profile guys are coming out and saying that because I think they want to be on record so they can say, "See, I told you so."
Well, and not only that, but it protects their fund as well that they're managing. Well, we told you, like you said, we told you so, and you left it in there anyway. So sorry for your bad luck.
Well, I haven't heard any of them say, if the country's going to collapse, take your money out of my
fund. Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll never hear them say that.
I think that the charade is. I personally think that it's coming to a close. When, I don't know, but I just think that with the plays that China and Russia in particular have been making, and putting into place all of the financial and economic infrastructure that they've been working on for the past, 3 or 4 years, 24/7, I might add, to be able to step away from this whole thing. I really think that once they get that settled, that it's really game over because I personally believe, I don't know that this is true, but I would think that China has probably written off that line item that says U.S. Treasuries, and that's no longer part of. They just use that as an instrument to fund some projects or whatever, but I don't really see them counting on that. I may be wrong, but
Oh, I
maybe.
don't think they are either. I've been saying for more than a decade that China's accumulating all this gold because when the dollar collapses and their treasury holdings go to zero, the value of the gold is going to more than offset what they lose in treasuries. And you're right,
Exactly.
they are selling their treasuries and they're buying they're buying their own currency. And then they're not blame free here. They're certainly manipulating their currency, but they're doing it to their benefit because the U.S. has left themselves vulnerable.
Well, and not only that, but the U.S., the Treasury, and the federal government have abused their status. Period. I mean, you know that. Well, I mean, that's what we talk
Right?
about all
Yeah,
the
the whole
time.
world knows that. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the problem. I mean, that is the problem. You know, and after a while, it's like, well, okay, this abuse has got to stop. It's just got to
Right.
stop.
So I just wanted to slip in a quick comment about gold here because it's especially for people who haven't been around that long. I mean, when we've had big moves like we've had for gold, it's been since mid December, and for the mining stocks since mid January. A lot of times, gold shot above its 50-day moving average and well above its 200-day moving average. And again, I know it's all manipulated, but historically, what's happened is you either get a 50-day moving average pullback or you get a 200-day moving average pullback. And I'm just looking at a chart of gold. And the first big up leg that we had, that was the main part of the up leg where we kind of broke out of that cup and handle formation, whatever you want to call it. And it shot above the 50-day, and then it retraced back to the 50-day. And for about a month, it basically was bouncing off the 50-day moving average. And this latest pullback, after gold hit a little bit over 1,300, and then I think the bank cartel and the Fed said, whoa, this thing's getting ready to take off again. We got to do something. So, and that's when all of a sudden the interest rate hike threats started appearing from the Fed governors. So we're down below the 50-day moving average, and we're in between the 50-day and the 200-day moving average. And I think we could be looking at a possible 200-day moving average pullback here, which is about another 3.5% lower for gold. I'm not saying I'm playing it as if we're going to get one of those, but it's definitely possible. And just sort of coincidentally, if you look at that cup formation that gold found, a 200-day moving average pullback would pull back right to the top, sort of the rim level of that cup. So for people who like to analyze geometric shapes on graphs, it's a valid geometric shape if we do have a 200-day moving average pullback. Again, I'm not a geometry expert when it comes to reading charts, and I don't believe in that, but there's certainly some degree of validity to it, to the extent that enough people trade it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
There you have
And
it.
just real quickly here, what's the way that this pullback is not something meaningful other than just a technical pullback that's a manipulated technical pullback, is that the volume, I'm just using GLD here to measure the volume in gold trading, has dropped off precipitously in the last 4 sessions. So that it kind of tells you the selling's getting exhausted. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be one more down leg. I think there will be. I think there's a probability that there will be, because I think they're gonna mess with the price of gold ahead of and up to the FOMC meeting, which starts on June 14th.
So we've got a couple more weeks of this nonsense.
I think we do, but again, it's if you're waiting to time the bottom of this thing, you're going to end up missing it. So, I mean, what I've been doing is every single day, wake up, price of gold is down, log into BitGold, and I move a little more money out of my checking account into BitGold.
Even if it's $10, it's $10 less or $10 more.
I actually, I don't. It's not like I'm moving thousands in there because I don't have enough to buy an ounce of gold every day when this thing pulls back. But I have enough to move, you know, for me, what's a meaningful amount out of my checking account and into BitGold because I feel better about it being in BitGold because I actually have ownership of gold. And when the price goes up, it's going to be like having a checking account that earns a huge amount of interest.
Yep. That'll be a good day. As you know, Dave, I've been interviewing quite a few people recently, and I can't remember who it was, but one of them was talking about the 200-day moving average and gold. They were saying it was probably going to move back through it, and
Yeah, no one knows. I mean,
that it was okay, that it really didn't matter, or that it wouldn't do any real damage. I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think that if it does go through the 200-day, will that be to these to the big money, these hedge funds and institutional money that's in there moving the market around or playing in that market? Do you think that it would be a signal to them, a
well,
negative
I
signal?
mean, that's what drives it. It's what they'll get it down to the 200-day moving average. Some hedge funds will have their computers programmed to dump their contracts at the 200-day moving average. You get a a cliff dive down really quickly, and it'll bounce back really quickly. So again, I just think this market's so manipulated. It's not worth trying to trade it.
Yeah,
And the way to play it is just every day they take it down, just add a little bit more and leave yourself plenty of room to add more because no one knows how low it's going to go.
Yep.
No one knows where it's going to turn around when it turns around, but it's definitely going to turn around.
It's definitely. Yep. I like the physical stuff myself, but well, Dave, should we wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I think we should.
Well, okay. Everybody have a happy Memorial Day. You're not going to wish him a happy Memorial Day?
Happy Memorial Day, everyone.
We'll pick it up next week.
Sounds good.